I left for a week, came back and my house had a sold sign. My brother grinned like he won, then two men in suits asked to see my deed. Let me back up because what happened next, it destroyed my family, and I didn't lift a finger. My name is Emma, I'm 30 years old, and for the last 5 years I've lived in the house my grandfather left me. Not a mansion, not some sprawling estate, just a small, two-bedroom cottage on 3 acres of land in rural Pennsylvania. Wildflowers in the spring, a creek that hums all summer, and a garden my grandfather planted 50 years ago. It was home, but to my family, it was money they thought they deserved. Let me tell you about my family first, because you need to understand the dynamic. My parents, Linda and Richard, always played favorites, and I was never the favorite. That title belonged to my younger brother, Jason. Jason, who dropped out of college twice. Jason, who lived with them until he was 28. Jason, who never held a job longer than 6 months, but Jason was charming. He knew how to smile, how to make my mom laugh, how to convince my dad he'd turn things around soon. Me, I was the responsible one, the boring one. I worked full-time as a grant writer for a nonprofit. I paid my own rent before I inherited the house. I visited every Sunday for dinner, and I never asked for anything. When Grandpa died and left me the house, my parents were furious. Not sad, furious. Why would he leave it to her? My mom said at the funeral. She didn't even whisper it. Jason just shrugged. Guess the old man had his reasons. But his eyes said something else. They said this should have been mine. Growing up, it was always like this. Jason got the new bike at Christmas while I got hand-me-down clothes from cousins. Jason got the car when he turned 16. I had to save up for 2 years to buy my own beat-up Honda. When Jason failed his first semester of college, my parents paid for tutors and gave him another chance. When I asked them to co-sign a small student loan for my graduate program, they said they couldn't afford it. I learned early not to expect anything from them. I learned to stand on my own 2 feet, to work hard, to save money, to build a life that didn't depend on their approval or their money, and I was okay with that. Really, I was. But the house was different. The house wasn't just property. It was a connection to the one person in my family who ever really saw me, my grandfather, Thomas Hartley. Grandpa wasn't like my parents. He didn't compare me to Jason. He didn't make me feel like I had to earn his love. When I was a kid, I'd spend entire summers at his place. He taught me how to identify birds by their calls, how to fish in the creek without scaring away the trout, how to plant tomatoes so they'd grow thick and sweet. He told me stories about the land, about how he'd bought it in 1968 for almost nothing because nobody wanted property that far from town, about how he'd built the house himself, board by board, nail by nail, about the history buried beneath our feet. "This land remembers, Emma," he'd say, sitting on the porch with a glass of iced tea. "Long before I got here, long before my grandfather got here, people lived on this land. They hunted here. They raised their children here. They buried their dead here." He'd show me things he found while digging in the garden. Arrowheads, pieces of pottery, smooth stones that might have been tools. "The earth keeps secrets," he said, "but if you're patient, it'll share them with you." I didn't fully understand what he meant back then. I was just a kid who liked finding cool rocks, but those moments mattered. They shaped who I became. When I was 25, Grandpa called me over one afternoon. It was late October. The leaves were turning orange and red, and the air smelled like wood smoke. He sat me down at his kitchen table, the same table where we'd had breakfast countless times, where he'd taught me to play cards and let me win just enough to keep me interested. He handed me a small wooden box, the kind you might keep jewelry in. It was old. The hinges were brass and slightly tarnished. "Open it," he said. Inside was a stack of papers, the deed to the house, handwritten notes in the margins, a faded map that looked like it had been drawn in the 1960s, and a letter addressed to me in his shaky handwriting. "This is yours," he said, and his voice was firm, not sentimental, matter of fact. "When I'm gone, this place is yours. Don't let anyone take it from you. Not your parents, not your brother, not some developer who wants to turn it into condos. You understand?" I nodded, but I didn't really get it. I thought he was just being dramatic. Old people say things like that, right? They worry about their legacy. They want to make sure their stuff goes to the right person. "Grandpa, you're going to be around for a long time," I said, smiling. He didn't smile back. "Promise me, Emma, Promise me you'll fight for this place if you have to. I promise. He squeezed my hand. Good girl. 3 months later, he died in his sleep. Heart attack. Quick and painless, the doctors said. He didn't suffer. But I did. I suffered because I'd lost the only person in my family who'd ever made me feel like I mattered. The funeral was small. Grandpa didn't have many friends left. Most of them had died years before. It was just me, my parents, Jason, and a few neighbors. The service was short. The pastor said nice things about Grandpa's work ethic and his love for the land. My mom cried, but they felt like obligatory tears. The kind you cry because you're supposed to. After the service, we went back to my parents' house. My mom made sandwiches nobody ate. My dad sat in his recliner and watched TV, and Jason pulled me aside. So what happens to the house? He asked. What do you mean? Grandpa's house, who gets it? I didn't answer right away. I knew what the will said. Grandpa's lawyer had called me the day after he died, but I hadn't told my family yet. I wasn't ready for the fight. He left it to me, I said quietly. Jason's face went blank. What? The house, he left it to me. Why? I don't know, because he wanted to. Jason laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was bitter, mean. That's unbelievable. He barely knew me. He knew you fine. You just never visited him. Because he was boring, Emma. He lived in the middle of nowhere and talked about birds all day. Then why do you care if he left me the house? He didn't answer. He just walked away. And I knew right then that this was going to be a problem. My mom was more subtle about it. She waited until Jason left the room. Then she sat next to me on the couch and put her hand on my knee. Sweetie, I know Grandpa left you the house. Yeah. That's wonderful, really, but have you thought about what you're going to do with it? Live in it, probably. She frowned. Live in it? Emma, it's 45 minutes from your job. The place needs work. It's going to cost you a fortune to maintain. I'll figure it out. Or, she said, her voice getting that sugary tone she used when she wanted something, you could sell it. Split the money with Jason. That would be fair, don't you think? Fair. He's your brother. He could really use the help right now. I pulled my knee away. It's not his house, Mom. Grandpa left it to me. Her expression hardened. Your grandfather wasn't thinking clearly at the end. He was old. He didn't understand how much Jason struggles. Jason struggles because he doesn't try. That's not fair. Neither is asking me to give away my inheritance. She stood up. Fine, be selfish, but don't come crying to us when that house bleeds you dry. And that was that. My mom stopped talking to me about the house. My dad avoided the subject entirely. And Jason acted like I'd stolen something that belonged to him. But I didn't care. Because for the first time in my life, I had something that was truly mine, something nobody could take away, or so I thought. I moved into the house 3 weeks after the funeral. It was strange at first, walking through rooms that still smelled like Grandpa's aftershave, seeing his coffee mug on the counter, his reading glasses on the side table, his boots by the door. I kept most of his things. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. I packed up his clothes and donated them. But the furniture stayed. The photos stayed, the books stayed. I wanted the house to remember him. I spent the first few months just cleaning and organizing. The place wasn't dirty, but it was cluttered. 50 years of accumulated stuff. Newspaper clippings, old receipts, boxes of tools in the garage. I went through everything slowly, carefully, and I found things that surprised me. Letters Grandpa had written to my grandmother before she died. Postcards from places he'd traveled in his 20s. A journal where he documented the construction of the house, day by day, in meticulous detail, and more notes about the land, about the history, about the artifacts. One entry caught my attention. It was dated July 14, 1972. Met with a man from the state today. He says the land qualifies for historic protection because of the artifacts we found. Applied for designation under the National Historic Preservation Act. Hope it goes through. This land deserves to be remembered. I didn't know what that meant. Historic protection? I made a mental note to look into it later, but life got busy. Work picked up. I had deadlines, projects, meetings, and I let it slip to the back of my mind. The The house became my sanctuary. I'd come home after a long day and sit on the porch with a cup of tea. I'd listen to the creek, watch the fireflies, feel the wind in the trees. It was the first time in years I felt at peace. I started restoring the garden. Grandpa had let it go a bit in his final years. The flower beds were overgrown. The vegetable patch was full of weeds, but the bones were still there. I could see what it used to be, so I got to work. I pulled weeds, planted new flowers, built raised beds for tomatoes and peppers. I even dug a small pond near the creek and filled it with native plants. Frogs started showing up, dragonflies. It felt like I was bringing the place back to life. My parents visited once, just once. It was a Sunday in late spring. I'd invited them for lunch. I thought maybe if they saw how much work I'd put into the place, they'd understand why it mattered to me. They arrived late. My mom got out of the car and looked around like she'd stepped in something unpleasant. "It's very rustic," she said. Thanks." My dad walked the perimeter of the house, tapping on the siding. "This wood's rotting, Emma. You need to replace it before winter." "I know, it's on my list." Jason didn't even get out of the car. He sat in the backseat with his phone, scrolling through social media. When I knocked on the window, he rolled it down. "What? Are you coming inside?" "Nah, I'm good. I made lunch. I'm not hungry." I wanted to argue, to tell him he was being rude, but I didn't. I just walked away. Because what was the point? He'd already decided I didn't deserve this place, and nothing I said was going to change his mind. Lunch was awkward. My mom picked at her salad and made passive-aggressive comments about how far I was from civilization. My dad lectured me about property maintenance like I was a child who didn't know how to use a hammer. And when they left, I felt relieved. I didn't invite them back. For the next few years, I lived quietly. I worked. I maintained the house. I paid the property taxes every year without fail. I fixed the roof, replaced the plumbing, painted the exterior. It wasn't easy. It wasn't cheap, but it was worth it. My parents and I maintained a polite but distant relationship. I still went to Sunday dinners most weeks. We talked about surface-level things, the weather, work, recipes. We didn't talk about the house. We didn't talk about Jason's latest failed job. We didn't talk about anything that mattered. And I was okay with that because I had my own life, my own home, my own peace. Until 3 months ago. That's when everything fell apart. I got an email from a woman named Dr. Sarah Winters. She ran a nonprofit in Vermont that taught grant writing to small organizations in rural communities. She'd read some of my work and wanted to know if I'd be interested in teaching a week-long intensive workshop. All expenses paid, room and board included, a small stipend for my time, and a chance to get out of Pennsylvania for a week and do something meaningful. I said yes immediately. I told my boss, she approved the time off. I told Marion, my best friend, she was thrilled for me, and I told my parents at Sunday dinner. "That's nice, sweetie," my mom said, but she wasn't really listening. She was looking at Jason, and Jason was looking at my dad. There was something in that look, something I should have paid attention to, but I was too excited about the trip to notice. The week before I left, I got everything ready. I watered the garden, paid the bills in advance, made sure the house was locked up tight. I even left a key under the flower pot by the front door, just in case of emergencies, just in case something happened and someone needed to get inside. I thought I was being responsible. I thought I was being careful. I didn't realize I was handing them the key to destroy my life. I left on a Monday morning. It was early June. The sun was just coming up. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and honeysuckle. I threw my bag in the backseat of my car and drove north. The workshop was incredible. I spent a week teaching passionate, hardworking people how to write grants that could change their communities. I hiked in the Green Mountains. I ate dinner with new friends. I laughed more than I had in months. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I had no idea that back home, my family was plotting against me. The workshop ended on a Saturday. I spent the night at a little bed and breakfast in Burlington. On Sunday morning, I got up early and started the long drive home. I stopped for coffee in Albany, grabbed lunch at a rest stop in the Poconos, and by late afternoon, I was pulling off the highway onto the familiar country roads that led to my house. The drive down my street felt different. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but something was off. The air felt heavier. The light felt wrong, and as I got closer to my driveway, I saw it. A sign, bright red letters, planted in the middle of my front yard. Sold. I slammed on the brakes. My car jerked to a stop in the middle of the road. I sat there, staring at the sign, trying to make sense of it. This had to be a mistake. Someone put the sign in the wrong yard. That was the only explanation. I pulled into the driveway, got out of the car, walked up to the sign. It was real, solid. The post was buried deep in the ground. There was even a little plastic box attached to it with business cards from a real estate agent I'd never heard of. My heart started racing. My hands went cold. I ran to the front door, fumbled for my keys, tried to unlock the door. The key didn't work. I tried again, nothing, the lock had been changed. I banged on the door. Hello, is anyone in there? No answer. I looked through the window, and that's when I saw it. The living room was empty, completely empty. The couch was gone. The bookshelf was gone. The rocking chair that Grandpa used to sit in every evening was gone. I ran around to the back of the house. Tried the back door. Same thing, lock changed. I peered through the kitchen window. Empty. The table was gone. The chairs were gone. Even the curtains were gone. I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. I called my mom. She answered on the third ring. Oh, Emma, you're back. How was Vermont? Her voice was so casual, so cheerful, like nothing was wrong. Mom, what happened to my house? There was a pause, a long pause, and then she said in that same cheerful voice, we sold it, honey. I couldn't breathe. You what? We sold it. Jason handled everything. You weren't using it, and we really needed the money. Your father's been having health issues, and the medical bills have been piling up. I hung up. I couldn't listen to another word. I stood in my empty backyard, staring at the garden I'd spent 3 years restoring, and I felt like the ground was collapsing beneath me. I called Jason. He answered immediately. Hey sis, how was Vermont? His voice was bright, happy, like he'd just done me a huge favor. Jason, what did you do? My voice came out as a whisper. What do you mean? My house, what did you do to my house? He sighed. Oh, yeah, so here's the thing. Mom and Dad really needed money, and you're never there anyway. You work like 60 hours a week. The place was just sitting there, rotting. It's my house, Jason. Well, technically, it was your house. Now it's sold. The buyers were really nice. Young couple. They're going to fix it up, turn it into something great. You can't sell my house. I didn't sell your house, Emma. Mom and Dad sold it. I just helped with the paperwork. I didn't sign anything. Another pause, this one longer. We figured you wouldn't mind. You forged my signature. That's a strong word. Did you forge my signature, Jason? Look, the money's already in Mom and Dad's account. We're going to split it 3 ways. You'll get your cut, probably like 60 or 70,000. You can put it toward a condo in town, something practical. I hung up. I couldn't listen anymore. I sat down on the back steps, the same steps where Grandpa used to sit and watch the sunset, and I cried, not quiet tears, loud, ugly, gut-wrenching sobs. I'd lost my home, my sanctuary, the one place in the world that was mine, and my own family had taken it from me. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go to my parents' house. I couldn't even look at them without wanting to scream, so I called Marion. Emma, what's wrong? Her voice was sharp, concerned. She could always tell when something was wrong. I told her everything. The sign, the locks, the empty house, the phone calls. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment. Then she said, in the calmest voice I'd ever heard from her, pack whatever you can salvage. You're staying with me. Marion, I don't have anything to pack. Everything's gone. Then just come right now. She picked me up 20 minutes later. I sat in her passenger seat, numb, while she drove us back to her apartment in town. She didn't try to make conversation. She didn't try to make me feel better. She just drove. When we got to her place, she made me tea, set me up on her couch, gave me a blanket and a pillow. And then she sat down next to me and said, "This is illegal, Emma." As I know. No, I don't think you understand. They can't just sell your house. You're the legal owner. You have the deed. They forged your signature. That's fraud. That's a felony. What am I supposed to do? Sue my own family? If that's what it takes, yes. I stared at my tea. I can't afford a lawyer. You might not need one. Do you still have the deed? The deed, the wooden box. I'd taken it with me to Vermont. I don't know why. Some instinct, some memory of Grandpa's voice. Don't let anyone take it from you. I pulled the box out of my bag, opened it. The deed was still inside, yellowed paper, Grandpa's signature at the bottom, and a stamp in the corner I'd never really looked at before. Marion leaned over. What's that? I squinted at it. The ink was faded, but I could still make out the words. National Historic Preservation Act, protected site. Marion's eyes widened. Emma, do you know what that means? No. It means your land is federally protected. You can't just sell protected land. There are rules, regulations. If your family sold it without following those rules, the sale is void. My heart started pounding. Are you sure? No, but we're going to find out. First thing tomorrow, we're going to the county clerk's office. I barely slept that night. I kept thinking about the stamp on the deed, about Grandpa's journal entry, about the phrase historic protection. What did it mean? Did it really matter? Or was Marion grasping at straws? The next morning, we went to the county clerk's office. It was a small, outdated building with beige walls and fluorescent lights that buzzed too loud. We waited in line behind an older man who was filing something about his property taxes. When it was finally our turn, a woman in her 60s named Dolores helped us. She had thick glasses and a floral blouse. She looked tired, like she'd been doing this job for 30 years and was ready to retire. What can I help you with? She asked. I need information about my property, I said, sliding the deed across the counter. Dolores glanced at it, then she looked again, then she picked it up and stared at it. Her expression changed. Where did you get this? My grandfather, he left me the house. She turned to her computer, started typing. Her fingers moved fast, and then she stopped. Her face went pale. Is something wrong? Marion asked. Dolores didn't answer. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. Hi, this is Dolores at the county office. I need to speak with Robert Chen immediately. Yes, it's urgent. No, I can't hold. Tell him it's about a protected site. She hung up, looked at me. You need to wait here. Why? What's going on? Someone's coming to talk to you. 20 minutes later, a man in a suit walked into the office. He was in his 40s, Asian American, with dark hair and sharp eyes. He carried a leather briefcase and moved with the kind of purpose that made everyone in the room look at him. I'm Robert Chen, he said, extending his hand. I work for the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. You're Emma Hartley. And yes. And this is your property, he gestured to the deed. It was. My family sold it while I was out of town. His expression darkened. They can't do that. They did. No, he said firmly. They tried, but the sale is void. I blinked. What? He sat down, opened his briefcase, pulled out a thick folder. Your property is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It was granted federal protection in 1972 under the National Historic Preservation Act. I didn't know that. Your grandfather knew. He applied for the designation himself. He showed me documents, maps, photos. In the early 1970s, surveyors discovered significant archaeological evidence on your land, artifacts from pre-colonial Native American settlements, pottery shards, stone tools, remnants of burial sites. The land was determined to have cultural and historical significance. I felt tears burning behind my eyes. My grandfather told me stories about finding arrowheads. He found more than arrowheads. This land is a protected site, which means it can't be sold, developed, or altered without federal approval. And even then, only the legal owner can initiate that process. So I'm the legal owner. Correct, which means anyone who sold this land without your written consent committed a federal crime. The room spun. A federal crime. Yes, I need to make some calls. He stepped outside. I sat there trying to process what he just told me. Marion grabbed my hand. Emma, this is good. This is really good. Is it? Yes, your family can't touch that house now. The sale's going to be reversed. What happens to them? I don't know, but they brought this on themselves. Robert came back inside. I've contacted the FBI. They're opening an investigation into the fraudulent sale of a federally protected property. Someone will be in touch with you soon. The FBI. Yes, this falls under their jurisdiction. I nodded, even though I didn't fully understand. Everything was moving too fast. 2 days ago, I thought I'd lost everything. Now the FBI was involved. It felt surreal. Robert handed me his card. If your family contacts you, don't engage. Let the authorities handle it. And Ms. Hartley, your grandfather did something remarkable by protecting this land. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for defending it. I took the card, thank you. He nodded and left. Marion and I sat there for a while, not talking, just absorbing what had happened. Finally, I said, I need to see the house. Emma, I need to see it. We drove out there together. The sold sign was still in the yard, but now, looking at it, I felt something different, not despair. Anger, because that sign was a lie. The house wasn't sold. It couldn't be sold. And my family was about to find that out. 2 days later, I got the call. Ms. Hartley, this is Special Agent Monroe with the FBI. I almost dropped my phone. Yes. We've opened an investigation into the fraudulent sale of your property. I need to ask you some questions. He was professional, calm. He asked about the timeline, about my family, about the deed. I told him everything. How I'd gone to Vermont, how I'd come home to the sold sign, how my brother admitted they'd forged my signature. We'll need to speak with your parents and your brother, he said. Okay. Ms. Hartley, I want you to understand something. What they did isn't just fraud, it's a federal offense. They sold federally protected land without authorization. That carries serious penalties. What kind of penalties? That depends on what we find, but they could face fines, possibly jail time. I closed my eyes. I don't want them to go to jail, I just want my house back. I understand, but the law is the law. We'll do our job and the courts will decide the rest. Over the next week, everything moved quickly. The FBI visited my parents' house. I wasn't there, but Jason called me afterward. He was frantic. Emma, what did you do? I didn't do anything, Jason. The FBI was here. They're talking about felonies. You committed a felony. I was trying to help. You were trying to steal. It's not stealing if. It is, you know it is, and now you have to deal with the consequences. Emma, please, you have to tell them it was a mistake, that you gave us permission. I didn't. Please, I'm your brother. You stopped being my brother when you forged my signature. I hung up. My mom called 10 minutes later. Emma, please, we didn't know about the protection thing. We thought it was just a regular house. It doesn't matter if you knew. You didn't have my permission. You forged documents you stole from me. We're family. Family doesn't do this. Emma, your father could go to jail. Is that what you want? I want my house back. We'll give you the money. I don't want the money, I want my house. It's already sold. No, it's not. The sale is void. The FBI told me. The state told me. You sold federal land without authorization. The buyers are getting their money back, and you're going to face charges. She started crying. Please, Emma, we'll do anything. You should have thought of that before you betrayed me. I hung up, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt a tiny flicker of power. They'd taken everything from me, and now they were scared. They were realizing what they'd done, and there was nothing they could do to fix it. The title company reversed the sale within 2 weeks. The buyers, a young couple from Pittsburgh, were confused but understanding. We had no idea about the protection status, the husband said when he called me. We just wanted a quiet place to raise our kids. I'm sorry you got caught up in this, I said. It's not your fault, we got our money back. We'll find another place. I felt bad for them. They were innocent, but I couldn't let that guilt override my need to reclaim what was mine. The locks were changed back. The title company sent me new keys, and on a sunny Tuesday morning, I walked into my house for the first time in 3 weeks. It was empty, stripped bare, they'd taken everything. Furniture, dishes, even the pictures off the walls, but the structure was intact. The walls Grandpa built, the floors he sanded, the windows he installed. I stood in the living room and cried. Not sad tears this time, relief tears because I was home, I was really home. Over the next few weeks, I started rebuilding. Marion helped, so did a few coworkers. We scoured thrift stores and estate sales for furniture. I repainted the walls, hung new curtains. Slowly, the house came back to life. But it was different now. It didn't feel like Grandpa's house anymore. It felt like mine. The FBI finished their investigation. My parents and Jason were charged with fraud and conspiracy to commit fraud. They pled guilty as part of a deal. No jail time, but heavy fines, restitution, community service, and a permanent record. My dad called me after the sentencing. I hope you're happy. I'm not happy, Dad, but I'm not sorry either. You destroyed this family. No, you destroyed this family when you decided money was more important than me. He hung up, we haven't spoken since. My mom tried a few more times. Letters, voicemails, all saying the same thing. They were sorry, they didn't know. They needed me to forgive them, but I didn't respond because I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. Jason sent one text, I'm sorry. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to believe him, part of me wanted to forgive him and move on. But the bigger part of me remembered standing in my empty house, remembered the panic, the betrayal, and I couldn't let it go. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on the land, on honoring what Grandpa had tried to protect. I reached out to Robert Chen, the preservation officer. He became a friend, a mentor. He taught me about the history of the land, about the Susquehannock people who'd lived there centuries ago, about the artifacts that had been found. Your grandfather could have developed this land, Robert said one afternoon as we walked the property. He could have sold it to a developer, made a fortune, but he didn't. Why? Because he understood what it represented. He understood that some things are more important than money. I thought about that a lot, about Grandpa's choices, about why he left the land to me. I think he knew I'd protect it, that I'd fight for it, even against my own family. 6 months after I reclaimed the house, I made a decision. I was going to open the land to the public. Not all of it, but part of it. I wanted people to see what Grandpa had seen, to understand why it mattered. I created a small nature preserve, built walking trails through the woods, put up educational signs about the history, the Susquehannock people, the artifacts, the significance of the land. I worked with Robert and the Historical Commission to make sure everything was done properly. We got grants, approvals, community support. And on a warm day in October, exactly 1 year after I'd come home to that sold sign, we opened the preserve to the public. People came, families, school groups, artists who wanted to paint the wildflowers, hikers who wanted to walk the trails, and every single one of them left a comment in the guest book I'd set up. This place is magical. Thank you for sharing this with us. We'll definitely be back. Reading those comments, I realized something. Grandpa had been right. This land wasn't just mine. It belonged to everyone, to the people who came before, to the people who'd come after. My job wasn't to own it. My job was to protect it. And that's exactly what I was doing. The preserve became my purpose. I started leading educational tour on weekends, teaching kids about ecology, about history, about the importance of preservation. I partnered with local schools to bring students out for field trips, and I worked with the Historical Commission to continue surveying the land for more artifacts. We found things, beautiful things, a complete arrowhead buried near the creek, pottery fragments that dated back hundreds of years. Each discovery felt like a gift, like the land was sharing its secrets with me, just like Grandpa said it would. My life became quieter, simpler. I still worked my grant writing job during the week, but my weekends were spent on the land, in the garden, on the trails, with visitors who appreciated what this place represented. I started sleeping better. The anxiety that had plagued me during the whole ordeal with my family began to fade. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes, worried they'd try something else. I stopped looking over my shoulder, because I knew the land was protected, and so was I. About 8 months after the preserve opened, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my mother. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. The letter was long, handwritten. Her cursive was shaky, like she'd been crying while she wrote it. She said she was sorry, that she'd been thinking about what happened every day, that she understood why I'd cut them off, that she didn't expect me to forgive her, but she wanted me to know she regretted everything. She told me my father's health had declined, that the stress of the legal proceedings had made things worse, that Jason had moved out of state, too ashamed to stay in town where everyone knew what he'd done. She said the family had fallen apart, and that she missed me. The last line of the letter was simple. I know you're probably happier without us, but if you ever want to talk, I'm here. Love, Mom. I read it 3 times, and then I put it in a drawer and didn't think about it for a week. When I finally did think about it, I realized I didn't know how I felt. Part of me was still angry, still hurt, but another part of me felt something softer. Not forgiveness exactly, but maybe understanding. They'd been desperate, scared, and they'd made a terrible choice. A choice that cost them their daughter and nearly cost them their freedom. Were they wrong? Absolutely. Did they deserve what happened? Probably. But did I want to carry this anger forever? I didn't know. So I did nothing. I didn't respond to the letter. I didn't reach out, but I didn't throw the letter away either. I kept it in the drawer, along with a few other letters that came over the following months, each one similar, apologetic, sad, hopeful. I told Marian about them one evening over dinner. Do you think I should respond? I asked. She thought about it for a long moment. I think you should do whatever feels right for you, not what you think you're supposed to do, not what anyone else would do, what feels right for Emma. I don't know what feels right. Then wait until you do. So that's what I did. I waited. And in the meantime, I kept building my life, my real life, the one I'd always wanted. I adopted a dog, a scruffy mutt from the shelter named Benny. He loved the land as much as I did. We'd walk the trails every morning before work. He'd chase rabbits and splash in the creek and bark at deer. And every evening, we'd sit on the porch and watch the sunset together. I started dating someone, a teacher named Marcus who visited the preserve with his students one day. He was kind, patient. He didn't push me to talk about my family. He didn't ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. He just showed up, and slowly I let him in. Life wasn't perfect. I still had hard days. Days when I'd see a family at the preserve, laughing and joking with each other, and I'd feel that old ache, that longing for the family I'd never really had. But those days became less frequent. Most days I felt grateful, grateful for the land, for the house, for the second chance I'd been given. One afternoon, almost 2 years after everything happened, I was working in the garden, pulling weeds, planting new perennials. Benny was lying in the shade, panting happily, and Marcus was inside making lunch. I was digging near the old oak tree when my shovel hit something hard. I knelt down and brushed away the dirt. It was a stone, smooth and round, but when I picked it up, I realized it wasn't just a stone. It had been shaped, carved. It was a tool, probably hundreds of years old. I sat there holding it, feeling the weight of history in my hands, and I thought about all the people who'd walked this land before me, the Susquehannock people who'd lived here, who'd raised their families here, who'd buried their loved ones here. They were gone now, but the land remembered them. And I thought about Grandpa, about how he'd recognized the importance of that memory, how he'd fought to protect it, how he'd passed that responsibility to me. I thought about my family, about how they'd seen this land as nothing more than dollar signs, how they'd been willing to destroy something sacred for a quick payout, and how, in the end, their greed had destroyed them instead. But mostly I thought about myself, about the person I'd been before all this. Quiet, obedient, always trying to please people who'd never really valued me, and about the person I'd become, strong, independent, unafraid to stand up for what mattered. My family had tried to take everything from me, but they'd failed, because what they didn't understand was that this land wasn't just property. It was legacy. It was history. It was roots that ran deeper than greed or betrayal or even blood. They'd tried to destroy me, and instead they'd freed me. Marcus came outside with sandwiches. You okay? He asked, sitting down next to me. I showed him the stone. I found this. He held it carefully, examining it. That's incredible. How old do you think it is? A few hundred years, probably. You should show Robert. I will. I took the stone back and turned it over in my hands. You know what's weird? I used to be so angry at my family, so hurt. But lately, I've just been feeling, I don't know, peaceful, I guess. That's not weird, that's healing. Do you think I should reach out to them? He looked at me. Do you want to? I don't know. Part of me thinks I should. Like, they're still my family. And they did say they were sorry. But, but I'm not sure I'm ready. And I'm not sure they've actually changed. What if I let them back in and they hurt me again? Then you'll deal with it. But Emma, you don't owe them anything. You don't owe them forgiveness. You don't owe them a relationship. You get to decide what feels right for you. I nodded. I think I need more time. Then take it. We sat there for a while, eating sandwiches and watching Benny chase butterflies, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Contentment. Real, deep, uncomplicated contentment. A few months later, I made a decision. I wrote my mother a letter. It was short, just a few paragraphs. I told her I'd gotten her letters, that I appreciated the apologies, that I understood she was sorry. But I also told her I wasn't ready to see her or talk to her, that I needed more time, maybe a lot more time, and that I needed her to respect that. I told her I was doing well, that the land was thriving, that I'd found peace, and that I hoped she could find peace too, even if it wasn't with me. I ended the letter with this: what you did hurt me in ways I'm still processing, but it also taught me something important. It taught me that I'm strong enough to stand alone, that I don't need your approval or your presence to be happy. I hope someday we can have a relationship again, but that day isn't today, and I don't know when it will be. I mailed the letter and didn't expect a response, but a week later I got one. It was short, just 3 sentences. I understand, I'm proud of you, and I'll be here when you're ready. I read it once and then put it in the drawer with the others, and I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. Maybe the understanding that people are complicated, that they can hurt you and love you at the same time, that you can let go of anger without letting people back into your life. Life continued. The seasons changed. Winter came and blanketed the land in snow. Spring returned and brought the wildflowers back. Summer filled the air with the hum of insects and the laughter of children visiting the preserve. And fall painted everything in shades of gold and crimson. I turned 32, then 33. The years passed quietly, peacefully. I kept working, kept maintaining the land, kept growing. Marcus proposed on the porch one evening. The same porch where Grandpa used to sit, where I'd cried after losing the house, where I'd slowly rebuilt my life. I said yes. We got married in the garden, just a small ceremony. Marion was my maid of honor. Robert Chen came, a few coworkers, some friends from town, and the land was our witness. The trees, the creek, the wildflowers, all of it. I didn't invite my family. Marcus asked if I wanted to. I thought about it, and I decided no, not because I hated them, but because that day was about my future, not my past. My mom sent a card. Congratulations, I hope you're happy. And I really was. Life wasn't perfect. There were still hard days. Days when I wondered what it would have been like to have parents who supported me, a brother who celebrated my successes instead of resenting them. But those thoughts came less and less often. Because I'd built something here, something real, something mine. The land was thriving, the preserve was growing, and I was exactly where I was supposed to be. 3 years after everything happened, I got a call from Jason. I hadn't heard from him since that single "I'm sorry" text. His number showed up on my phone, and for a moment I considered not answering. But curiosity got the better of me. "Hello. Emma, it's Jason." "As I know." There was a long pause. "I'm calling to say I'm sorry, really sorry, not just because I got caught, but because I hurt you. Because I took something that mattered to you and tried to turn it into money. And I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I'm in therapy now, and my therapist said I needed to make amends, so I'm trying." I didn't say anything, I just listened. "I was jealous," he continued. "My whole life, you were the good one, the responsible one, the one who had it all figured out, and I was just the screw-up. And when Grandpa left you that house, it felt like proof that I didn't matter, that I'd never matter, so I took it from you. And I told myself it was for Mom and Dad. but really it was because I wanted to hurt you, and I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to know that I know what I did, and I regret it every single day. I took a deep breath. Thank you for saying that. Does that mean? It doesn't mean anything except thank you. I'm not ready to have you in my life, Jason. Maybe I never will be, but I appreciate you acknowledging what you did. Okay, he sounded defeated. Okay, I understand. I hope you figure things out, I really do, but I can't be part of that process. I know, take care, Emma. And you too. I hung up and I realized something. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel hurt. I just felt neutral, like he was a stranger who'd once done something terrible to me, but not someone who had power over me anymore. That night, I told Marcus about the call. Do you think I should have given him another chance? I asked. Do you want to? No, but I feel like maybe I should want to. Why? Because he's my brother, because family is supposed to matter. Marcus took my hand. Family does matter, but so do you. And if having him in your life would hurt you, then you don't owe him that. You don't owe anyone access to you, Emma, not even family. He was right, I knew he was right, but it still felt complicated. Over time, though, the complications faded. Life got simpler, clearer. I stopped questioning my choices, stopped wondering if I should forgive people who'd hurt me, because I realized something important. Forgiveness isn't about them, it's about me. And I could forgive them for what they did without letting them back into my life. I could release the anger without giving them access. That's what I did, I forgave them. Quietly, privately, I let go of the bitterness that had lived in my chest for so long, and I moved on. The preserve continued to grow. We added more trails, more educational programs. We partnered with the local university to bring archaeology students out to study the land. They found more artifacts, more evidence of the people who'd lived here before. Each discovery felt like a validation, like proof that Grandpa had been right to protect this place, that I'd been right to fight for it. On the 5th anniversary of the day I came home to find that sold sign, I did something I'd been thinking about for a long time. I planted a tree, a young oak, right next to the one Grandpa had planted decades ago, and I put up a small plaque. In memory of Thomas Hartley, who understood that some things are worth more than money. I stood there looking at the plaque, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. The betrayal, the fight, the victory, the healing, and I realized something. This wasn't just Grandpa's legacy anymore, it was mine too. I'd taken something he'd started and made it bigger, better. I'd opened it up to the community, shared it with people who would appreciate it, protected it for generations to come. And in doing that, I'd found myself, the real Emma, not the people pleaser who'd spent years trying to earn her family's approval, but the woman who knew her worth, who stood up for what mattered, who built a life on her own terms. That woman was strong, that woman was free, and that woman was home. Marcus came and stood beside me, put his arm around my shoulders. You okay? Yeah, I really am. Thinking about everything that happened. Yeah, but not in a bad way, more like grateful, I guess. Grateful that it happened, because if it hadn't, I'd still be trying to make them happy, still giving pieces of myself to people who didn't deserve them. But this forced me to choose, and I chose me. He kissed the top of my head. I'm proud of you. Thanks. We stood there for a while, watching the sun set through the trees, the same trees Grandpa had planted, the same land he'd protected, and I felt him there with me, not in a supernatural way, but in the roots beneath my feet, in the wind through the leaves, in the memory of everything he'd taught me. This land remembers, he'd said, and he was right, it remembered him, it would remember me, and long after we were both gone, it would still be here, still sacred, still protected. Family had tried to take what they didn't understand. They'd seen dollar signs where there was history. They'd seen inconvenience where there was meaning. And they'd paid the price for that ignorance. But I'd seen what Grandpa saw. I'd understood what he'd tried to teach me. And I'd done what he'd asked. I'd protected the land. I'd fought for it. I'd made it matter. And in the process, I'd protected myself too. The last rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, painting everything in gold. Benny barked in the distance, chasing something only he could see. the creek hummed its eternal song. And I stood there, in the place I'd fought so hard to keep, feeling more at peace than I'd ever felt in my life. This was home, not because of the walls or the roof or the property lines, but because of what it represented: legacy, truth, roots that ran deeper than greed. My family had tried to destroy that, but truth has a way of surviving, of pushing through the dirt and reaching toward the light, just like the wildflowers that came back every spring, just like the trees that grew taller every year. Just like me. I'd been bent, I'd been broken, but I hadn't been destroyed. I'd come back stronger, clearer, more certain of who I was and what I stood for. And that certainty, that strength, that peace, those were things nobody could take from me. Not my parents, not my brother, not anyone. They were mine, just like this land, just like this life, just like this home. And I was never letting go again. Have you ever had to stand up to family for what's right? Tell me your story in the comments. And if you believe some things are worth more than money, subscribe for more stories like this one.